Looks like we have won the die roll here. So, gonna elect to play first. And yeah, I mean, we just don't have the second land here. Pretty unfortunate because we do have Thought Knot and a temple and multiple other Eldrazi creatures, but we're gonna have to mulligan this for sure. Not really much of a decision there. And now we've got another awkward hand we're looking at here. It looks like our opponent has kept their 7, so no actual white source in the hand. I do think we want to keep this hand just because we have Temple plus Thought Knot. We can probably try to scry into a white source, although we're still pretty far away from casting this Flicker Wisp in hand. Also, Aether Vial wouldn't be the worst card to find here, so we're going to keep. These sorts of hands, I'm pretty happy with the new scry rule to have that option, and we immediately found the Caves of Corlos, so just the plan is to play a turn 2 Leonin Arbiter here, and then we can potentially follow up with Thought Knot on turn 3, depending on how things play out. Although, this Grim Lavamancer is not at all what we wanted to see. We're still going to play the Leonin Arbiter, but this is not where we want to be. Our opponent may just be able to Lavamance this creature down, but we don't have any removal in our hand. So, yeah, we'll see what... I don't know what the Snow-Covered Mountain actually means. Now we're seeing a Ghost Quarter. It could mean that our opponent has actual copies of Skred in their deck. And here is our Eldrazi Temple actually getting blown up with our opponent's Ghost Quarter. So we are not able to search for a basic there. So our own Leonin Arbiter is getting used against us. And then the Arbiter got pinged down. So that was a very, very bad turn for us. Not gonna lie about that. Wasn't expecting to get Ghost Quartered there. And yeah, I mean, pretty much just the worst possible. It looks like our opponent could be using these snow-covered lands in some way. In any case, the Grim Lavamancer is very good on this board. And here's a Collective Brutality. It looks like our opponent is going to take a look at our hand and not see any non-creature spells, but at the same time, our Leonin Arbiter is gone here. And there's a Godless Shrine off the top, so we can cast this Flicker Wisp if we want to. The issue is that if we do, it just gets pinged away by this Grim Lavamancer. So I think we just play this Godless Shrine tapped and say go. Not in love with our spot here. We do have the ability to finally cast this Thought Knot next turn. Unclear if that's going to be able to get it done. Alright, here's Dark Confidant, so our opponent clearly has ways of gaining some major card advantage here. And we're just going to take this hit. So not really too much of a decision here. We're just going to play the Thought Knot, hope it hits something good, and that our opponent starts kind of bricking off a little bit. So we see a Colligan's Command and a Lightning Bolt. I think we want to take the Colligan's Command. It's just the more powerful card, although there's definitely an argument to the Bolt, but going to take the command. Unfortunately, either card is enough to get rid of our Thought Knot here. But we are gaining a reasonable amount of information about our opponent's deck here. And here is a Liliana the Last Hope. Very interesting. Very interesting. So our opponent can just plus the Liliana the Last Hope and then Lightning Bolt the Thought Knot. And yeah, I mean this game is pretty much over at this point. Don't really see how we're gonna be able to come back. We can cast this Thought Knot Seer that we just drew. And it looks like our opponent has a Liliana of the Veil as well. So we're going to grab that and pass back here. So our best bet would be our opponent revealing an Emrakul right now off Dark Confidant and somehow having that card in their deck, because it's pretty hard to see how we're going to get through all this damage. Our opponent's at a pretty high life total at this point. So there's a Bob. We already knew that our opponent had that, and looks like we're just going to get the turn passed back to us. The Thought Knot being plussed on means that it's not a particularly good attacker. Though we did draw a Wasteland Strangler, which it's a card. There's a couple different ways we can use it here. We can play it and just try to get rid of the Grim Lavamancer, and I kinda like that. All right, let's go with that line. So we're just gonna Wasteland Strangle away this Grim Lavamancer. Now it's very possible that our opponent elects to just get rid of our Strangler, ping it, in response to this all happening. And that is what's going to happen. So our opponent's going to ping away the Wasteland Strangler. We're still going to get to process something, so sure, we'll process away a Bloodstained Mire. Now the real question is, do we actually want to attack with our Thought Knot? And I think we may want to. Yeah, why not? We'll get in there for 2. If our opponent wants to double block, then we're trading our Thought Knot for 2 Dark Confidants, and it looks like that's what's going to happen. Interesting. Alright. So our opponent can tick down this Liliana to get back a creature, but pretty happy to see those Dark Confidants go away. That card advantage that they were going to produce was going to be probably our nail in the coffin. Now, I mean, we've got a little bit of hope. We'll see. It looks like our opponent smartly is going down with that Liliana the Last Hope. And we'll see if they elect to get back a Dark Confidant here or a copy of Grim Lavamancer. And it looks like the answer is going to be a Lavamancer. And that would make sense if our opponent just drew another copy of Dark Confidant. But there's a Reality Smasher. That's actually a really nice draw here. So we can play that and get rid of this Liliana. If we want to, we could also go straight at our opponent's face. We do still have this Flicker Wisp in hand. But, oh no, it looks like our opponent actually has a Terminate here. That's really bad news. So that's going to take care of our Reality Smasher and leave us in a pretty bad spot, definitely. Now that we're tapped out, our opponent can activate the Lava Claw Reaches without us being able to Ghost Quarter it. But instead, here's a PN Kieran. Yeah, I think we've seen enough here. We're not gonna come back from this one, so let's go ahead and move on to game 2 here. So we're up against a black-red kind of Jundi style deck. So we want grindy cards like Kitchen Finks, cards like Reality Smasher. Go for the Throat. Pretty good removal spell we can work with. I also think we might want the Thoughtseize as well. So these are all cards I would think can take into consideration. The explosives could take it or leave it. So we do have to be worried about these Lilianas. Liliana the Last Hope plussing and getting rid of a 1 toughness creature is definitely problematic. So yeah, Flicker Wisp, it may be a card that we don't need here. Also Aether Vial, because we just want to have a lot of gas. I'm fine with shaving on Vial. We can cut the Relic of Progenitus. The Forge Tender is interesting. It counters a Lightning Bolt if we want it to. I think I'm fine with shaving on a copy of Flicker Wisp. So yeah, this seems reasonable. We could also board in the Zealous Persecution. I don't mind that. We saw a lot of 1 toughness creatures from our opponent. And fine with taking out a copy of Thalia. I could see yeah. Well, I could actually see an argument for just taking out these files completely. Because the thing is, we saw Colligan's Command as well. We don't really want these getting shattered. So, thinking about it some more, we probably just don't want Aether Vial in our deck. So, that would mean just going up to the full playset of Thalias. And we could even board in this Forge Tender. So, let's go with this. And hopefully we have a little bit better draw than last time. This is a really interesting hand. So we've got Temple, Fetid Heath, no actual white source, Thought Knot, Smasher, Flicker Wisp, Arbiter, and Finks. I think we want to keep this just because the upside is so high. We basically got 2 draw steps to draw any land, and we should be pretty okay. We definitely want to draw a colored source, 1 single colored source. But yeah, I mean, the black-red style decks, the Jundi style decks, you really get punished for taking a mulligan, just because they're pretty likely to have a discard spell or just have a Dark Confidant or whatnot, and you really want to maximize any sort of explosive draw. This I would classify as potentially a very explosive draw. So we see here our opponent does indeed have a discard spell, and this is going to take care of one of the cards we don't care quite as much about. It's going to be the Arbiter, but we might not hit the land here in order to cast the Arbiter, but we actually did hit a Godless Shrine, so we can put that into play and prepare for next turn. And next turn we'll be able to cast Thought-Knot Seer. So, feeling pretty good about our spot. Although our opponent has Thoughtseize here, so this Thoughtseize almost certainly is going to take the Thought-Knot. Would be pretty surprised to see anything else get taken. And there goes our Thought-Knot Seer. So we are now going to have to settle for hopefully getting Reality Smasher down next turn. And we can play Kitchen Finks right now. And Kitchen Finks is pretty good against our opponent's style deck. We've seen a lot of spot removal and none that cleanly answer a Kitchen Finks. So we'll see what our opponent's got here for us. Could be a Liliana. We saw various Lilianas, but instead it's the actual nail in the coffin. It's Blood Moon. So Blood Moon is pretty much the worst thing we could have possibly seen there. And yeah, I mean we can attack with our Kitchen Finks and hope it's gonna take us the distance, but unfortunately we are unable to cast essentially anything in our hand, and we're pretty unlikely to be able to cast any of it. With all of these mountains basically not doing anything for us. Here's a Bolt. That's going to take care of the Finks. And you know what? This is a deck that's very vulnerable to Blood Moon. Blood Moon is just a good card in the format right now. So, well, anyways, doesn't really matter. We can make a red mana if we want to. We're pretty much just dead here. So, yep, our opponent has 2 basics and is going to cast the Lily, and you know what? That's going to do it. We're just not going to be able to come back. Our best draw would be a basic Plains here, and that would not enable us to cast anything in our hand. So, gonna go ahead and just throw in the towel.